Welcome back to the dopest show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer, and this is Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the dumb stuff I did to get put in prison. Also got a lot of stories about the crazy stuff that happened when I was actually in prison, and God forbid you end up in prison. You want to make some of the same mistakes I made. So, this person in particular ended up in the group. I talked about driving for the biggest heroin dealer in my city when I was 16. He'd have me drive back and forth, usually every week to every other week. And she ended up being a part of, I guess, you'd almost call it like his entourage. He had like a traveling party that he just kept going, but he was making that much money. Of course, now he's a broke junkie that doesn't have two pennies to rub together. Ironically, he didn't end up in prison or anything like that. When he did a 90-day jail sentence, people stole everything from him. This guy, I'll have people on here talk about him who were there during this. You'd never believe it today, but back then, he was it. He was the person. 90% of the city was through him. He made so much that buy $800 a blow and just drop it in ammonia, and everybody'd be using all night. That was not just a once in a while thing. That was every day. That was every single day. And there's a wild story about the dealer that would drop that off. He had this blue Escalade with 24s, and the kingpin's brother got in a conversation with that dealer one day, and he's like, "What's it like when y'all smoke that stuff?" And he's explaining to him. He talked the dealer into doing it. The dealer lost everything he had. That went by sparks is what he went by, but yeah, he sparked one up, then he lost everything. He smoked his rims and everything else away. So that's a wild story. But anyway, this woman ended up being like a neighbor to these people, and she started hanging out with them basically because they were close by. She started talking to them. She had never really done any type of hard drugs. Didn't sound. I'm sure she'd experienced this and that, but not like H. But she had pain medication. That came up in conversation. And it sounds like basically what had happened was they were like, "Well, we got this. It's better than that." And they'd trade her that for the pain pills because people they want different variety of opiates. It's a weird lifestyle. But, and it ends bad for her. It ends with her not being here anymore. And it's not the typical, she just didn't wake up one day. It's a whole lot more tragic than that. But anyway, so she was somebody that we ended up going hanging out at her apartment. She lived, all in these little projects. At the end of the night, we pack up and we go to this country place in a place called Newcastle. It's across a whole mountain. It's actually where I live now. Got to cross that mountain now, and it's absolutely insane because I hadn't gone over that mountain since, in a decade. After he did that 90-day driving sentence, and he couldn't pay the rent for that house anymore, which was the house that he got his safe robbed out of that had everything in it, ripped out of the floor, tied a chain to a truck. But anyway, I hadn't come over here at all, but Casey, my fiance's family, lives in a place called Paint Bank, and you gotta go across that mountain and go another 45 to an hour across it to get to her family. Okay, now where we live now in Newcastle, it's about 15-20 minutes away. I drive right past where we were staying all the time, and I ain't been back there in all that time, but every time I drive by that one spot, I still think about it. There's a little gas station at the corner. It's no longer a gas station. It's just a abandoned place. Maybe somebody going to rent it or owns it, but it ain't been nothing since I've been living here for a couple of years, and it's wild. Every time I drive by, I think about that. But anyway, yeah, she packed up with this crew. See, this dealer, the kingpin, he had 4 or 5 cars. He'd have one parked at the country, a couple parked at the project house, and people he'd get one of his cars and drive something. He had people running stuff all the time. I remember the first time that I really met him, which is a whole other story in itself. I was bragging, I was selling weed, and that's how I ended up meeting him, was he was getting some of that off me. And I was a kid. I wasn't nothing I guess I was 15 years old, something like that, and he's dropping me off a bundle of dope. And I look back at that, I was 15 years old. This is a 30-year-old selling a 15-year-old bundle. It's messed up. But he's got this brand new truck. And I wasn't on a truck. That never impressed me as a kid. If you didn't have something flashy, little sports car or something. Like, I didn't think nothing of it. The adults are like, whoa, that's a nice truck. But looking back, yeah, it was a nice truck. But I was pulling out my little wad of money talking about, I made that today. This mother here pulled up. He couldn't even stack it. He had it like this. Just bop, 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 bop. He's like, I made that in the last hour. And he did. He did. The whole junkie community, the whole 90% of the age that was supplied had to wait on this addict kingpin to wake up. Way past, not at the crack of dawn, not even at the crack of noon. Somewhere around 3 or 4 o'clock, he'd wake up. He wouldn't get going until about 7, and then by about 8 or 9, he'd drive all around meeting everybody, meeting about 50 people. And he was paying, a lot of times he's paying $4 for something that was prepackaged and then selling it for $30, $2.50 for 10. But like I said, he ended up with nothing. Look at him now. It's got nothing. That's what it all ends up as. And it was from crazy times. But anyway, after he fell off, this woman ended up in the whole mix because of him, because of her appeals, because she was next door. They got her to try it. She liked doing that, and it was her social group too. She was the sweetest woman, came from Philly, had a dog, had his little dog in there. It was real nice too. Had a really nice apartment, and people would sit down at this wooden table she had and just get lit. The guy who gave me kept buying lighters, kept paying me, he kept paying me a bundle to bring him a lighter because he was too messed up. He was in her apartment when I brought him that lighter. But yeah, so her apartment, after the kingpin fell off, it became the new hangout spot. It became where everybody was at. And connections, everything else had dried up at that point with certain different things. And my friend was going to this guy over here in Benton and talking about, yeah, he goes over there to Sterlingwood Apartments and gets stuff. And I'm like, Sterlingwood Apartments? I said, shoot, I'm going to pay old friend to visit. Come on with me. We rolled up there. And the first thing that happened when we rolled up there, I talked in a story about me getting jumped by these people they called the crack kids. And it's this funny story. They call them kids. They're the same age as us. Some were older. But they were big. They were big kids. Like at 17, 18, that age, like 100, 140, 155 at the best. These kids were 6 foot 200. Some born 200, just big kids. And we go up, start walking up the apartment, and they're all sitting on the steps leading up the apartment, like 5 of them on both sides. You got to walk right through the middle of them. It felt kind of uncomfortable to just walk right through the middle of them, But I'm like, gotta say, excuse me. They're like, what y'all looking for? Y'all want some crack? I'm like, nah, I don't want some crack. Cheryl home? Like, yeah, she probably inside, knock on the door. That was my first introduction to them. I like them less and less every time, but that's how our encounters happen. I did a whole lot of hustling over there at those apartments, after this point. Before this point, did a whole lot, but whenever I was, driving for him, but, knocked on the door, and yeah, she's got it going on. One of the 4 kingpins that got busted, there were 4 kingpins that got busted, all at the same time. And that was the first time Roanoke acknowledged, yeah, we got a dope problem. They didn't know what dope was. There's one time I got pulled over, and I'll tell a story later. I got pulled over, they searched my car. They didn't. It was right there. It was right there, and they didn't know what it looked like because they saw these little rectangles that were looked like BC powders with tape around them. They didn't know what it was. I got lucky that time. But anyway, she did her thing, and she was getting a decent little bit. They front it turned. Her house was the hangout spot, so it was kind of like going to kind of like a bar, but for dope heads. You go in there, you get stuff off of her, you sit at this table, people do various different, narcotics, mostly the dope that she was selling though, but that's what it was like when you went there. And of course all things fall apart, and that's the point that I'm trying to bring up, when I tell a lot of these stories. This was a very nice girl. I was friends with her. She was very, very nice. Nicest person. ever. And because she's on those pain pills, and just because she was wanting to make friends. I mean, she wasn't really outgoing person, but you know, but she's just quiet, minding her business. But because she got associated, she got wrapped up in this. But anyway, things fell apart with the connection because her dealer got busted in that 4 kingpin bust. So then she doesn't have a way to make money. She still got to supply her habit. She had got like a disability check, and that's why she got her pain meds. But ultimately, by the way, the dealer, the biggest dealer in the city, he got 2 brothers. One of them passed. One of them's not with us anymore. He overdosed. The other one is a gay meat truck driver. I couldn't make that up. He's a gay meat truck driver. You wouldn't guess he was gay, but he's also the guy I told about in the story about in the halfway house when the 63-year-old veteran from Vietnam, the old black man they call blind, who couldn't smell because he had a head injury, couldn't smell, couldn't taste. He smacked that guy for keep stealing his food. And then the meat truck driver, who sounds straight as could be normally, came out. He's like, because I was the president of the house, came banging on. I'm like, dude, what do you want? Something's happening. And whenever something combative came down, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? You're the president. I'm like, this dude's smoking rock. This dude's just snorted a pill. Me being the president, the structure of this halfway house, that doesn't apply when everybody in the halfway house is using. What do you want me to do? And he's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But anyway, the meat truck driver was really good friends there. And, a lot of people in that crew, he ended up being like the person who people go to and ask him for stuff. He was a mostly good dude, and he would give people stuff, like give them stuff. I'm pretty sure there's 2 or 3 people in the house. I'm pretty sure he might turn out because there's some stuff that happened with a few people I know. I talked about the guy whose mom runs a motel with her skeevy boyfriend, started selling the meds after her son overdosed to all of his friends. He might have done something with him. There was some weird times there. There was some weird times, some weird circumstances, some stuff happening. There was one time when his boyfriend rolled up on a moped. He just robbed a pharmacy. Couldn't make that up. He had bottles and bottles of those old brown Oxy 30s, not Roxy, but they were Oxy 30s. Yeah, robbed a pharmacy on a moped. Yeah, he went to prison. So yeah, definitely not advocating this stuff. But anyway, a lot of people, something I see with older people that are using, is a lot of older people that are using, whenever they start having health issues, they use stimulants, they use too much of them, they have strokes. The Kingpin's girl, she got a 2.3 eye that never went away. Her eyes look normal, but then she got one that went up there every time she got messed up. Now you go look at her, it's messed. It's at a 2.3 every time. Oh, she was a good-looking girl. Man, that girl, now, you wouldn't believe it. You would not believe that girl was like she did. She's busted herself from drugs. But this one that I'm speaking of, the story's about, she had a stroke. Well, she ended up living with that meat truck driver. I heard about this later on. I heard about all this type of stuff later on. And she lived with him. Well, he ended up moving, and he ended up telling her, I can't take you with me. This is what I got going on. And, apparently felt really bad about it. But, it wasn't his responsibility, really. But basically, she ended up in a psych ward, right? And, for danger to herself. Danger to yourself or others. They do it like a 3 to 5 day hold. She'd had a stroke. Her face looks completely different. She's probably got self-esteem issues about that. You know what I mean? She doesn't have anywhere to go. Life's falling apart. She doesn't have a connection. She doesn't know how she's going to feed this habit. Everything got down. And the people in the psych ward didn't do their job. They didn't do their job. They didn't look at her, didn't watch her enough, and shame on them for that. I don't know how. You'd imagine, and I hope one of her family members sued them senseless. I don't know what happened with the aftermath of that. I didn't keep up with that bunch after that, I didn't keep up with them. But she got a sheet or something, and she's not with us anymore. So, yeah, it ended up really freaking tragic and really freaking sad. It sucks. Anyways, there's somebody who I forgot to mention in the video I did today too. I woke up and just got right to recording. I meant to mention this at the start, but Zach from Life in Prison, West Virginia. We did a talk the other day. I'll do another one at some point. I was a little bit tired from my insomnia thing. I'm coming back from that now. I go through it, then I come back from it. It's just something I go through. And, rather than hide it and act like, everything's good. I'm always good all the time. Or I go hard all the time. Told a story about me getting my butt whooped earlier, but by the kids. Call them the kids. They're older than me. But everybody call them the crack kids. I mean, it's something that stuck. But anyway, I talked about getting whooped by the three of them, and the other story I told today. But Zach, life in prison, West Virginia. I'll get him to comment on here. I want to pin the comment if you want to see that talk. We talk about booty bandits and all types of crazy stuff, some wild stuff. I keep it, Jeff Foxworthy clean on here, but I go a little bit Ron White dirty. I go more like Richard Pryor dirty on this one. I go talking about some stuff. On here, I got a certain way I do things. On other people's, if it's okay with them, I mean, I'm going to respect people's wishes. I just talk like I'm thinking, and sometimes it's funny to cut up like that. But anyway, if you like the video, press the like button. If not, it's 16 minutes and 2 seconds of your life, in which you'll never get back. But yeah, from that whole bunch, I've got so many stories. There's a hotel in Roanoke that's called the Hotel Roanoke. Google that place. Beautiful. Oh my God, it's in downtown, huge. It's right across from Coliseum. It's got like 10,000 person Coliseum and a 2,000 person thing that they do the comedy shows in. It's like they do plays and stuff in there too. But the Hotel Roanoke across the street, it's been there for like 100 years. They got like this governor suite that's like the whole top floor. Cost $800 a night. We lived in that mother for a month. For a month, we lived in that mother. $800 a night. That kingpin, dude. I mean, like when people they say they should have never given y'all money, man. He's one of the people like had money and it didn't make sense. And the people like, okay, I talked about Kobe, Big Kobe, the one who says sex offenders don't get to eat. He could tell you about it. Kobe's words, not mine, but I agree with him. Was he said this person, who I'm not going to say his name, could have retired 10 times off the money he made. But drug dealers don't retire, and they can come back and get you after the fact. It ain't going to work out for you, so keep that in mind. But Kobe said that about this guy, and this guy was balling like that. I'm telling you, the amount of money, it was absurd how much money made, spent, ran through. The stories of this was just like, it was like some epic party type stuff. They partied too hard, and that's coming from me. And I was partying hard as could be, okay? But being 15, 16 years old around these adults going this hard, at that time, I kept up with them. Lord have mercy. I don't know how I'm here anymore. I don't know how I'm sitting here. So many people lost. I mean, I done mentioned just a few off the top that have been lost. I mentioned the guy whose mom ran the motel. I mentioned the kingpin's brother. I mentioned this girl. They're all gone. That's just 3 people that's gone. I'm on 44 that were close, personal friends. And since I've, been saying I've known 44, there's been like another 5 that have passed that I was acquaintances with, but that don't count. If I go in that, it's hundreds. And they're all from the same part of Roanoke, Virginia for the most part. So it's some pretty wild stuff. But anyway, that's it.